I was walking along, minding my business, when out of an orange-colored sky, flash, bang, alakazam, wonderful you came by. I was humming a tune, drinking in sunshine, when out of that orange-colored view, flash, bang, alakazam, I gotta look at you. One look and I yelled timber, watch out for flying glass. Cause the ceiling fell in, the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit. This is it, I-T-it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of an orange-colored sky. One look and I yelled timber, watch out for flying glass. Cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit. This is it, I-T-it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of an orange-colored purple stripe, pretty green polka dot sky. Flash, a bam, alakazam, and goodbye. Wow, I thought love was much softer than that. What a most disturbing sound. So I fought free, the man's gunning for me, blue and white men walk tonight. See, damn my pride and all the cats coming down the east side. Tonight there's no place to hide. So I keep friendship gun for me. 'Cause all face no shame. Tonight, I boom diddy boom dee hey. Shada boom diddy boom dee yeah. Yeah, blow, baby, blow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Thank you. We'd also like to give a big thank you to our dignitaries and elected officials here in the room. So as I call your names, please stand if able or just wave. We've got District 10 Fort Worth City Council Member Alan Blaylock. Councilmember Blaylock, thank you for being here. We have Superintendent of the Fort Worth ISD, Dr. Karen Molinar. Superintendent Molinar, thank you for being here. Thank you. The former mayor of North Richland Hills, and I have to tell you, he's here every year. Mayor Oscar Trevino is here. Mayor Trevino, thank you for being here. We also have representing District 3 City Council Member Michael Crane's office, District Director Christy Dull. Christy, thank you for being here. And representing District 11 Council Member Jeanette Martinez's office, District Director Natalie Lopez. Natalie, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Finally, if you are on today's luncheon committee or on staff here at the foundation or a board member for the foundation, would you just take a moment and stand or wave your hand so we could thank you? Thank you all. I mean, folks, they work around the clock. They work 12 months a year for a 1-hour program once a year, so we thank them for their service. Now we'd like to begin with a brief moment of prayer and reflection from our CEO of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, Matt Varicki, over here to my right, your left, at table number 1.
Please bow your heads and pray for God's blessing. God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today and for the life-saving services provided by the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. We seek your support and guidance for the work being done within the community. And in a special way, we ask for healing and support to all of those who suffer in darkness. For those who have lost loved ones, we ask for your comfort and care and pray that you will use the people here and in their lives to help them see that they are not alone. Please bless our food and those who prepared it, and please bless our event. Amen.
Thank you, Matt. The first speaker you will hear from today is a member of the Harris family. Dr. Edwin Harris, he says he prefers Ned, so we'll call him Ned. Ned Harris is a founding board member of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. He retired from a 40-year career in higher education that included positions as Associate Provost for Enrollment and Academic Services at St. Louis University, Director of Admission at Lemoyne College, Associate Director of Financial Aid at the University of Notre Dame, and Director of Enrollment Management at Eastern Connecticut State University, as well as executive enrollment positions in many institutions of higher education around the country. The word service is one of Ned's focuses in his career, which led him to this board position and many other volunteer roles. Ned is the brother of Tom Harris and Jordan's uncle. Would you please help me in welcoming Dr. Edwin Ned Harris to the stage?
Good afternoon. As you now know, I'm Tom's brother and one of Jordan's uncles. When I was asked to speak with you today, I immediately focused on a memory of my niece that will be with me forever. As you may be able to see, I popped my collar today in her honor. The memory goes back to Jordan's early teen years when I would visit here in Fort Worth, stay at the Harris home, and have my collar popped. It was just the way I liked it. But Jordan thought it was a little odd, and maybe it is, but she conspired with her sister Alicia, and they would sneak up behind me and try to pull down my collar. I can still see the twinkle in her eye and the joy she exhibited in trying to influence her uncle's strange dress habits. As time went along and Jordan grew through high school and college, we'd have conversations about her studies and activities and what she hoped for her future. She clearly wanted to make a difference. It was clear to me that she could do anything, and I mean anything, she put her mind to. And so I wondered how she would ultimately influence those around her. I now see in all of you the impact that her life is having. As I prepared to share my remarks today, I thought of the last time I spoke with a group this large. It was a group of incoming college freshmen and their parents at freshman orientation. I saw in their faces a variety of emotions: apprehension, excitement, and hope for what was to come. As I look out today, I see some of those same emotions. But instead of a focus on the first year of college, I see by your very presence here for a future without suicide. I recently read a Facebook post by an engineer, Rob Avis. He used the giant California sequoias to emphasize the importance of connectedness. Sequoias grow to a height of 300 feet, but are supported by a root system that only goes 6 to 12 feet deep. And yet they survive droughts, fire, storms, and climate shifts that would kill almost any vegetation. He wrote that it makes no engineering sense that a 300-foot tree with 6 to 12-foot roots should survive. But they do, because their root systems spread 50 to 80 feet and interweave with every sequoia around them. Suicide is difficult to prevent as an individual. However, a system of like-minded individuals, a community, if you will, can have a tremendous influence on reducing and even eliminating suicide. Rob's analogy made me think of the like-minded root system of connectedness that the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation and Fort Worth community have created as a means of preventing suicide. The work is not done, but you've made tremendous progress over the past few years, especially among your youth, to be truly hopeful about eliminating suicide in this community. If you're not yet connected to this survival system in Fort Worth, you've taken the first step by being part of this gathering today. Please stay connected and hopeful and strive to make this community suicide-free. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Harris. And continuing with the tree metaphor, aren't we lucky to have the Harris family planting the roots to help bring this conversation to light? It really is remarkable what one family can do for an entire community. Now, folks, please direct your attention to the screens to learn more about our Summit for Research, which is the Foundation's signature event. Now, essentially, I think of it like the intersection between research, program, and practice. And it brings together the top minds in the study of suicidal behavior around the world, and it allows them to collaborate with each other and with some of the top foundations in the country. The summit is key because it allows our foundation to help drive the conversation on suicide prevention nationally and share what's working right here in North Texas with the rest of the world.
The Summit for Research, to me, is the true definition of meeting of the minds.
The Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation saw this gap. I would see that there were all these different threads of people who were working on very specific elements, but no one was bringing it all together.
In terms of suicide prevention, this is an issue where we really need all hands on deck. We really need to push the envelope when it comes to innovation and collaboration.
Gathering foundations, big and small, that have contact with folks out in the community, that have relationships around the country, I think is exactly what needs to happen.
To me, the 2025 Summit for Research is a collaboration of different areas, whether it's researchers, foundations, that are coming together to improve ultimately and make a larger impact faster in the world of mental health.
The gap was not just that foundations weren't necessarily talking to researchers, but oftentimes that researchers weren't talking to each other.
Having those intersections where people can really talk about Here's what I'm looking at. What do you think? So the ultimate collaboration is something that not only is funding available for and is pushing forward, but those funding resources are excited.
With something like suicide, there is no one solution. It's actually going to be a combination of strategies that everyone's a piece of. And so what that means is we have to come together and we have to have a dialogue and start sharing ideas.
To me, the summit acts as a great opportunity to get into a room with a lot of people who are very intelligent. Having everybody in one place is such a brilliant idea.
The answers to the questions about why and getting access to resources and partners to start to answer that question can absolutely happen here, which is fantastic.
Not one of us can solve this issue alone. We really need to be pooling our resources, really learning what's working in other communities.
When we talk about suicide, it's so general. Everyone has data that they can look at. That's never been an issue. How we read that data, how we bring that data to life, how we implement changes so that we can figure out what levers are pulling this data, and so we know which levers to pull in real life, that matters.
Being able to sit with experts in the field, with foundations in the field, and talk to one another and have these real personal, in-depth conversations is like something I've never experienced at a conference before.
And so we've kind of looked at this from a broader community perspective, instead of only looking at this as a mental health clinician-driven solution. All of us play a role in it, but it does require us to behave and act in different ways.
I see the social problem as a multifaceted, very complex problem. Each of us, foundation has its own strengths, researchers has its own strengths, and only by putting it together can we achieve something bigger.
As a part of being in the military, I deployed to Iraq in 2009, and that was a very transformative experience for me because, when people killed themselves downrange, they were brought to our hospital so we could care for their bodies to transport them home. And it was the first time I'd, ever confronted the kind of brutal reality of suicide.
I had friends of friends pass away from suicide, and it didn't quite hit home the exact same way as my brother passing away. And I had anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. And I think that him passing allowed me to live because it may have been me.
Everything that we do here at the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation has to start with research. Our goal to ultimately drive down suicide rates can only happen if we have the tools and the expertise in place in order to make these things change. M2G's MHI brings a different approach to this work, not only thinking about pharmaceutical interventions and how we can partner with universities for direct treatment, but also about how we can begin to think about a holistic approach to these communities of care.
We have known Tom and Ellen Harris for the last 7 years. When I came to this space and Susan and I were looking for a place to start collaborating, we went to Ellen as, what do we do with this passion that we have now been gifted? And so ultimately, Tom and Ellen's idea around having a summit where researchers and foundations can come together, we're really excited to see how we could help contribute to the summit to make it the best that it can be.
This summit has been about supporting, building, bringing together, tearing down silos, and now we have something amazing that we can continue to build on.
There's really a whole community of researchers and foundations. We are working together. And that passion made me feel really, really hopeful and made me feel like I'm not alone.
We are here to collaborate with these researchers, but also to build them up, to support them. So when they go back to do their daily work and their hard work, they know that there is a loud community here in Fort Worth that's really cheering for them and pushing them forward.
Isn't that a remarkable event? All happening right here in our backyard. Now it's my pleasure to properly and formally introduce you to our good friend, Dr. Matthew Varicki, who has been with the foundation since 2022. In that time, he has worked to expand the programming at the foundation. He's grown the board of directors and primarily has focused on walking in the footsteps of the great Tom and Ellen Harris. Matt came to the foundation with a background in education. He was a teacher, a principal, and eventually a superintendent. He studied his undergraduate and master's degrees from the University of Notre Dame and earned his doctorate from the University of Oklahoma. And I could think of no one more qualified or committed to lead the mission of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. He is so excited. His enthusiasm is infectious, and he is committed to bringing hope to those who need it. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, Dr. Matt Vericke.
I want to start today and actually take a moment to remember Ian Graham. He's a member of the Harris family and a founding board member of the foundation, and we lost him to cancer just last week. Ian served as our treasurer and our financial guru, always ensuring that our budgets were balanced and our financials were in order. He was beyond dedicated, and even though he didn't live in Texas, he and Mary Margaret attended every luncheon, zoomed into every board meeting, and always found time to help. He once joined a board meeting from a river cruise in Europe, which certainly sets the standard for the rest of us in board service. Ian's going to be greatly missed, and the foundation is profoundly grateful for the support he provided to us over the years. Before 1967, having a heart attack outside of a hospital was essentially a death sentence. In those times, the police responded to all major medical emergencies in major cities, but they were untrained in medical interventions and were just focused on trying to get people to the hospital as quickly as possible. In rural communities, it was even more dire. In most cases, they would simply send a hearse, cut out the middleman. You might imagine that the reasons for all this were simply that the science wasn't advanced enough to help people at this stage of American life. But you'd be wrong. 911 existed, CPR existed, even portable defibrillators existed. The problem was all of these life-saving technologies were siloed and not offered in one place by people trained on how to use them. In short, there was no emergency medical system. The first true EMS program was launched in Pittsburgh in 1967 by a Black-run nonprofit called Freedom House. They brought all of these methods and approaches together and to scale for the very first time. Throughout their launch, they heard the common refrain that anyone who is trying to tackle a wicked problem in society hears. It's too expensive. It isn't scalable. No one will pay for it. The training is too complex. People will never accept this type of service. Freedom House had the ultimate ace of its sleeve, however, because despite what everyone was saying, Freedom House worked. The model was solid, and lives began to be saved at rates that no one believed possible. Within 10 years, EMS services existed virtually everywhere within the country. They just had to prove that it worked. We know a lot of things that work, but those interventions are often siloed and are not offered in the places where they are most needed. We're told that the interventions are too expensive and that they won't scale, and that the comprehensive solutions are too difficult to implement. But I'm here to tell you, it's not true. Our foundation has been growing. Over the last 8 years, we've moved into nearly 160 schools that cover nearly 140,000 students. Most of those schools are in Tarrant County, and we've reached a critical mass. If you've come to a luncheon before, you've heard me talk about 50% reductions in youth suicides. Today, I'm proud to tell you that suicides among youth in Tarrant County in the 2024-2025 school year dropped from recent highs of 20 to just 5 last year. We have only been able to do this because of the radical generosity of the people in this room. 2 organizations really also stepped up this year to make this possible in 2025. Bell Flight has recognized JEHF as one of its anchor organizations within the community. They allowed us to spur our school growth dramatically. And Women Inspiring Philanthropy has granted JEHF the ability to dramatically increase our coverage in Arlington and double the size of our annual youth conference to serve more than 3,000 students this January. We've also stepped up to make sure that our model doesn't just stay here in Fort Worth. Over the last 6 months, we provided program support and design to the Sam Asbury Foundation of Atlanta and the Matt Harbin Foundation in Austin. Both will be launching the JEHF model in their respective service areas within the next year. We are making amazing progress, but the fight isn't even close to being over. We had 5 families that lost children in the last school year. That's 5 too many. Over the last calendar year, nearly 90% of the youth deaths in the community have come from schools in which we have no programming. While suicide numbers for all members of the community have dropped nearly 20% from recent highs, they're still orders of magnitude higher than they were a decade ago. And yet, there is hope. We've shown over the last 2 years that change is possible, that intervention is possible, that we do have the resources right here in this community that can save lives. What we're asking for here today is your support to do just that. We do not accept that suicide is just a part of modern life, and we have the programs, the people, and the results to prove it. Just like Freedom House, we know there is a better way, and with your help, we will absolutely achieve it. Thank you for joining us here today. I'd now like to direct your attention back to the screens for this year's Foundation Update video. Thank you. Not only has this year been a year where we've trained the most people we've ever trained, but we've also added the most schools that we've ever added. And all of that has translated over into an absolutely fantastic reduction in suicides, especially among youth, down 75% from the recent highs. I am so proud of our team and the work that they've done out in the community.
Over the last couple of years at Bell, we have realigned our giving strategy to look at how we can make the most impact for what matters to our employees and for the needs in the communities around where our employees live and work. We came into connection with the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation to honor the needs expressed by our employees and then to really strategically look at how we can build that into our culture. I'm really proud, and I know that Bell leadership is really proud that we are working to build a culture where we are excited to continue a partnership with the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation in continuing to take away stigma of depression or anxiety or struggles that someone may be having at home and to have resources readily available.
We talk a lot about having different tools in your toolbox. You know, that's what being a firefighter is all about. You never know what you're going to walk into. And the QPR training, it teaches us to recognize maybe different things that people would say or recognize situations in their life. It's an easy way to start the conversation around mental health that maybe people aren't having all the time. And to have all these different tools to be able to address whatever situation that we're in.
Asking for help when you're having mental health issues or a crisis can be really hard, especially I think individuals that have a faith background. We want to be a space where they feel safe to share, finding that light in whatever that hope might be. Well, I recently completed the suicide prevention training through the Soul Shop workshop. This training has provided an opportunity for me to recognize those areas where we're not doing enough. I think it's imperative that as a faith community, we are talking about mental health and suicide prevention because we want to be present for people.
One of the things we see in our role as a fire chaplain is that unfortunately suicide rates in first responders are getting high enough where they're almost becoming a leading cause of death. The Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, they came to us. They helped us navigate it. They helped us fund the funding. The way QPR was offered and just the amazing resource that it is, now I just have this confidence going in that I know what to do. I know how to help the person kind of process through it. And then I also know how to refer out and get them the help they need.
students don't just talk to the teachers in their class. They talk to the staff, whether it's a paraprofessional, whether it's a custodian, bus driver. So the more people that have those skills and those tools, the better.
So having that peer-to-peer program, we're not just throwing the kids in the water and saying swim. No, those peer-to-peer programs are actually giving them the tools for the things that we know are already happening.
Hope Squad helps to really push that message out to be kind, be friendly. You don't know what people are going through, so it needs to be talked about so these problems can be resolved.
I believe Hope Squad is important as someone who's lost family members to suicide, and just getting to be part of such an amazing group like this.
They take those skills with them for life. Being able to empower the students, I think, is the most important part of it, that you are not alone in this. This is not your struggle. It's not for you to fix it, but it's okay for you to know how to talk about it, because your friends are coming to you and they're sharing the big things. So being able to know what to do with those big things is important.
For me, kind of an encapsulation of everything that we do came to the 2025 summit. Dr. Craig Bryan is such a wonderful example of everything that we hoped the summit would be. And the study that we're working on right now with him is focused on really figuring out what is the right approach to interventions in order to make sure that people are in treatment for the least amount of time possible.
A question we often ask in suicide prevention is, well, is this treatment effective? Does it work? A better question is, well, what works for whom and when? The project that the foundation agreed to support is a very large concerted effort that we refer to as Strengthens. And the Strengthens project is designed to help us answer a very important question, which is, which strategies are most effective for which people? My hope is that we'll better understand those different roads that people follow to a suicidal crisis. Because if we are able to map out those different roads, that actually might help us to do a better job of matching the right intervention at the right time for the right person.
About a week ago, we got an email from one of Jordan's roommates back from the University of Michigan. And he reached out to tell us that he had a friend who was going through a really tough time and wanted to know if we had a copy of a poem that Jordan had written. And I think a lot of times when we talk about Jordan, we talk about the effect that she has had on the Fort Worth community and this foundation and everything that goes on. We talk about these big lofty numbers, and those things are great. But it's also really important to know that Jordan still affects individuals on a day-to-day basis, that her friends from college still think about her constantly. And they also know, by the example that Tom and Ellen have set, that they can always reach out to us for help. Jordan's roommate doesn't live in Fort Worth, doesn't live in Texas, and yet the first people he knew that he needed to ask were Tom and Ellen. And I think that makes an incredible difference, and it's why I continue to work at this foundation each and every day as hard as I do.
What a great video. So in the video, we just heard the impact of this foundation from our first responders, from teachers, and from school staff. And next, you're going to hear from one of the world's foremost experts on suicide prevention, trauma, and resilience. Dr. Craig Bryan, who you saw in the video, is a board-certified clinical psychologist in cognitive behavioral psychology, receiving his PSYD in clinical psychology from Baylor University, and completing his residency at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Dr. Bryan is a veteran. He deployed to Iraq in 2009, where he served as the director of the Traumatic Brain Injury Clinic at the Air Force Theater Hospital, where he started researching PTSD, suicidal behaviors, and suicide prevention strategies. He has held significant faculty appointments around the country. He has managed federally funded projects focused on testing treatments for reducing suicidal behaviors. He's published literally hundreds of peer-reviewed scientific articles. He's been featured on, you've probably seen him on TV. He's been featured on CNN, Fox News, NPR, USA Today, and many other major media outlets you'd probably recognize. He's also a published author. He served on boards of directors. And folks, if I were to read all of the awards he's received, we'd be here until dinner time. So suffice it to say, he is an internationally recognized expert on suicide prevention, trauma, and resilience. Please help me welcome Dr. Craig Bryan.
All right, well, thank you for the very kind and gracious introduction. I want to begin with the story. At the beginning of the Inferno, Dante Alighieri describes finding himself lost in a dark forest, unable to find a path out. He tries climbing a hill to find an escape, but his way is blocked by 3 beasts who trap him. As he runs from these beasts, the ghost of Virgil appears and tells Dante that he must journey through hell to escape. Guided by Virgil, Dante descends through the 9 circles of hell, eventually finding the way out. The Inferno concludes, and then we emerge to see the stars again. Dante's journey through hell provides a useful metaphor for the darkness that many suicidal people find themselves stuck within. The hopelessness and despair that comes from their many thwarted attempts to escape, and the very difficult process of recovery. My research and clinical work over the past 2 decades have focused on finding ways to help suicidal people escape their personal hells so they can see the stars again. I'm often asked why I focus on such a dark and somber topic. I remember being interested in suicide when I was a psychology graduate student at Baylor University, which is over 20 years ago now. But it wasn't until I was deployed to Iraq in 2009 that my professional and personal commitment to suicide prevention solidified. When deployed service members died by suicide, their bodies were transported to our forward deployed hospital in Balad. That's on the picture here. And this is where we would care for their bodies and do our best to keep their bodies biologically functioning for eventual family reunification and organ donation. We typically provided care for only a single night before they were transported back home. Now, in combat zones, nearly all suicides result from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. That's because firearms are so readily available. One week, our hospital was caring for 3 such soldiers, all of whom had died by self-inflicted gunshot wound. Instead of the usual one-night stay, though, those 3 soldiers stayed with us for several days because a thick sandstorm had grounded all non-emergency flights. We therefore placed those 3 soldiers in adjacent ICU beds to make it easier for us to care for them. I remember standing at the foot of their beds one day and seeing for the first time the brutal reality of suicide. All 3, we had patched them up, they'd been cleaned, but the terrible violence of gunshot wounds to the head are not easily hidden or disguised. Now, as a clinical psychologist, I had worked with plenty of suicidal patients before, but I had never seen the viciousness of suicide in this way. And I remember feeling sad and angry and confused and completely, utterly helpless. Why weren't we better at preventing suicide? And how could we be better? That experience transformed my understanding of suicide, and it set me on a new pathway. Since then, my journey has taken me many places. First, at the University of Texas Health, San Antonio, where I ran the first treatment study testing the effectiveness of brief cognitive behavioral therapy, or BCBT, for suicide prevention. In that study, we found that patients who received BCBT were 60% less likely to attempt suicide than patients who received typical mental health treatments. we were able to show that simple things could save lives. From there, I moved to the University of Utah, where my research program rapidly grew, and I started teaching students and trainees how to use BCBT and other therapies to effectively treat suicidal people. At the University of Utah, we completed research showing that a single procedure from BCBT called crisis response planning, so just a 30 to 60-minute activity, could reduce suicide attempts by 76% as compared to typical crisis management services. We also showed that we could aggressively treat post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, in as little as 2 weeks, simply by scheduling therapy sessions every day instead of only once per week. After Utah, I moved to The Ohio State University, where I established the Suicide and Trauma Reduction Initiative, or STRIVE, and recruited a team of clinicians and researchers who shared a common goal to test, develop, and refine treatments to prevent suicide. At OSU, we opened a clinic that specialized in the treatment of suicide risk and started researching new ways to tweak and improve existing therapies. We also tested ways to augment those therapies to speed up treatment response and to improve access to care. Many of those advances were made possible by private donations and foundations who allowed us to test ideas and try things that large federal sponsors like the National Institutes of Health and Department of Defense were unwilling to support because they were too risky. The support received by donors and foundations enabled us to make enormous leaps forward, and in some cases, obtain the evidence we needed to convince those federal agencies to fund larger and more definitive studies. And just the past few months, my journey brought me to the University of Vermont, where we are establishing a new center of excellence in specialized suicide care. In Vermont, our team will take the next steps in this research, moving us far beyond simple questions like, does this treatment work? To much more complex questions like, what treatments delivered how and when are most helpful for which people? Our research program is called Strengthens. It does not try to develop or invent new therapies. We instead focus on making good treatments work even better. We're following the model adopted by cancer researchers to rapidly advance cancer care over the past several decades. Following that model, our research recognizes that different people follow different pathways to suicide. And because of this, different people might need different treatments. Our ultimate goal is to make treatments better, faster, and stronger, and to make these treatments more accessible for everyone struggling with suicidal thoughts and behaviors. I'm grateful for the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation's support of this work and their role in bringing me to this latest chapter of my journey. It was at that foundation-sponsored summit last year that I made the decision to move to Vermont. Prior to that retreat, I'd been wrestling with this decision. Do I move again? And as a researcher, moving means temporarily slowing down your work and investing a lot of time and effort into building new connections and new momentum. So if you're going to move, the juice needs to be worth the squeeze. The retreat, that summit, helped to clarify who I am and the path forward in my career. To that end, the foundation is my personal Virgil, guiding me to find my path. My appreciation for the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation extends beyond its support of my research. I'm deeply grateful as well for the foundation's investment in me as a person. So thank you for placing your trust in me and for your faith in this vision. Thank you as well to everyone here who supports the foundation. Your generosity helps researchers like me try things that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Together, we can guide people out of the darkness to see the stars again. Thank you.
Folks, isn't it remarkable to hear from a true world expert? Like there are very few people in the world more qualified, more studied, more researched than Dr. Brian. And isn't it moving that someone has dedicated their life not only to defending our country, but to a topic that's heavy and that's hard? And Dr. Brian, I can say on behalf of all of us here, thank you, because we will never know how many lives your research, your time, and your dedication has saved. Another hand for Dr. Brian, please. And likewise, we will never really know how many lives the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation has saved. It's now my pleasure to welcome to the stage the co-founder of this organization and Jordan's mom. Please welcome Ellen Harris.
If you'll indulge me for just a minute. You heard Matt speak earlier of my brother-in-law Ian's contribution and dedication to this foundation. What he didn't mention was Ian's dedication as an uncle to Jordan, her siblings, and all her cousins. He adored them all, and we will miss him more than words can say. Today, you've heard how the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation is working in schools, workplaces, and faith communities, and how we've built a special commitment to supporting first responders and our medical community. You've heard stories from families and friends who've been touched by our work, and you've learned about the groundbreaking research, like that of Dr. Brian, that's saving and changing lives every day. Every dollar ever invested in Jordan's foundation has been transformed into measurable impact. The challenge of prevention work is that the more successful it becomes, the less urgent it can appear. And that's precisely why this moment matters so much. We're closer than ever to proving that a community united in purpose can stop suicide, but we cannot do that without you. Now, I'd like to ask for your participation in something visual. Whoa, that's a lot. If you're seated in tables 1 through 35, please stand if you're able. In the 2019 school year, we were in 35 schools across North Texas. We began to see culture shifts, a growing openness to conversations about mental health. And with your help, demand for our programs grew. Please remain standing. Now, if you're at tables 36 through 73, please stand if you're able. Thanks to your continued support, by the 2021 school year, we had doubled our reach to 73 schools. The movement was spreading and the community was beginning to see real, lasting change. And now, would the final tables please stand if you're able? I am proud to share there are not enough tables in this room to represent the schools we now serve. Because today, we've doubled our reach again, serving more than 140,000 students across 160 schools in North Texas. But as you've heard throughout today's program, this work has never been about how big the foundation grows. It's about how much pain we prevent. And that's why we're so proud to share that youth suicides during the school year are down 75% from their recent highs. Thank you for standing up for mental health and for standing up for life. You may be seated. So, yes, we've told you what we've done in schools, but that's only part of the story. We've also trained more than 45,000 people in QPR, giving them the tools to save a life. We've committed over $1 million to research that's transforming the way our nation approaches mental health. And through it all, we've continued to fight the stigma that keeps too many people suffering in silence. But this fight is far from over. We need your help to reach more schools and drive those numbers down even further. We need your help to build stronger community partnerships and train even more people. We need your help to develop new methods, new tools, and new hope for those still suffering in the dark. We're asking you right now to join us in this mission, to stand with us once again, and to ensure that these incredible stories don't stop here, they start everywhere. Today, you can take that stand. A gift of $5,000 allows us to launch an entirely new peer-to-peer program in a partner school, expanding our reach and giving hundreds more young people access to hope. A gift of $2,500 funds a peer-to-peer school program, empowering students to help one another, to notice, to care, and to speak up. A gift of $1,000 underwrites an entire school's attendance at the Texas-sized youth conference, inspiring hundreds of students to become advocates for mental wellness. A gift of $500 equips one school with the vital materials needed to keep these programs going strong. And a gift of $250 provides a full suicide prevention training session within our community, giving people the confidence and tools to save a life. Whatever level you give, know this: your generosity today will save lives. We have the research, we have the results. What we need now is you. So please, take a moment to fill out the pledge card in front of you or scan the donation QR code at your table. Together, we can make sure every student, every parent, every first responder, and every neighbor knows that hope is here and help is possible. Table captains, please collect any pledge cards or checks from your guests and place them in the large envelope on your table. And should you wish to take home these lovely orchids, they're also available for purchase through the QR code. Thank you all so much for your support.
Well, folks, now you know why out of the 5,000 nonprofits in Tarrant County, this luncheon brought to you by the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation is one of the most remarkable, the most well-attended, and most impactful. And this is, we credit one family for us being here, bringing the conversation to light. That's Ellen and Tom Harris and the whole Harris family. Would you please once again help me thank them for their commitment, what they've done here? So you heard Ellen share 140,000 students, and folks, the need is great. We're just getting started. I hope that you'll consider supporting this mission. We are going to keep working every year to get that number We're down 75%. Let's get it all the way down 100%. And then we can just focus on prevention. So I hope that you will consider helping plant more seeds like we saw in the mighty forest with the sequoia. So let us not forget that at the end of the day, folks, depression doesn't care where you live. It doesn't care what language you speak, how much money you have, or where you went to school. And so the next time you're around the dinner table or the water cooler or at a coffee shop, remember that sometimes a simple, "No, really, how are you?" can bring a conversation out from the dark and into the light. And ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored that you chose to spend your lunchtime here today with us. We appreciate your support of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, which is to prevent suicide, to eliminate stigma, and to provide hope with people struggling with depression. Thank you again so much for being here today. We hope to see you next year, and God bless.